down. It's about listening to the director, making those choices, and you don't have to look at those people. You just got the script in front of you. You got the words in front of you. Think about if every actor who ever acted, we've got cue cards now and teleprompters all over the place, but imagine if all you ever had to do was just read it off the page. No one would make mistakes. You got it right there. So that what's great is you're working in that studio during your coaching process, during your demo reel process. You're also getting very used to being in that recording studio. The engineer might say, "That's great. Can you do me a favor? That last little line. I heard you hit the music stand with your pencil. Can you just pick up the last little line for me?" "Sure, great. Can you just play me what I did so I can hear that?" "Great. I'll just follow it." You play it, boom, and I'll give you 3 in a row right after it, just like you wanted, but this time without going by accident. Right? Things like that you just get used to what's going to happen in the real sessions. And sometimes you might even, in radio commercials a lot, you work to character. You get to actually work with another actor. And that's fun too. Like if your coach says, let's say you're a young woman that they're working with. You say, "You know what, I want to get a young guy in here so that you guys can do a 2-character spot so it can show how you have great timing."
Like Misty and Brock.
Like Misty and Brock. Just so that you know. And that's the thing with the cartoon stuff is we rarely work together. So sometimes Misty might come in to record her lines and she does her 100 lines of the show. And then Brock comes in to read his lines and he does his 100 lines of the show. If they feel like it, they might play you what Misty said that leads into your line so you can go, "Oh, I see how she said that, so I can respond." Sometimes she hasn't recorded that line yet and I'm responding to her. But I'm booked to do the session. We just didn't get to her line yet. So now I have to think about how would Misty deliver the line on the script that I see and go, well, how do I answer that? And looking at it and going, okay, now the director is there to help too, because the director is going to say, when I have Misty in here, I'm going to have her say it like this. This is what I'm going to do if it's a line that really is critical so that you know how to respond. Well, let's talk about that going to the store line. If Misty said, "Do you want to go to the store and get a sandwich?" and my line was, "You know what, I'd rather go to the store and get pizza." Well, her line's not recorded yet. I need to remember that she's saying, "Do you want to go to the store to get a sandwich?" That's the operative noun there, right? I want something different. So I wouldn't say, "I want to go to the store and get some pizza." That doesn't make sense based on the line she's going to say. So you've got to really, that's where it gets tough. But if you have experience working with someone in the booth, like on a radio commercial where you're giving and taking, and you're listening to what someone's asked you, and you say it back to them, and you really pay attention, then when you get presented with some of the stuff in the animation world, you can work without lines being recorded, which is kind of cool. But I'm sure you've heard situations where lines sound like they don't match up. And that's where you blame the director. Where you say, these two people don't sound like they're talking to each other at all. The way that she said that and that he said that. And that's just sloppy. That's just sloppy stuff. I worked on a show, I directed a show called Viva Pinata, and unlike like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, where we're doing adaptation, where we're just matching lip flap and whatever, Viva Pinata was a prelay show, which I brought in each actor alone, recorded all of their lines for the show, and in my session had a track for each actor, and then I assembled the audio so it sounded like people were talking to each other. None of those people were ever in the same room at the same time. So a straight line with a joke, someone yelling and the response, all of that was me putting it together first as audio and then sending that to the animation company to animate and then send back to me to do any little tweaks I needed to do. But the skill of that was knowing if I was asking you to read your line, I knew when you came in how you were going to respond. I was going to make you respond a certain way and give you that input so that I could create that joke. And when you listen to that show, most people think the whole cast was in there together, but they weren't. And that's just from years of understanding how conversation works. So you make your demo reel. You make this fantastic little teaser of what you can do. Now, if you do a little bit of character stuff, it's better to show that reading a commercial than reading something from an anime. Because if you listen to a random line of Brock, and had no idea what Pokemon was, and you were a casting director or a producer who was looking to hire some voiceover actors, you would go, well, great character, but what is he talking about? Like, I have no idea what's going on here. Or Kaiba saying, you know, I play my Blue Eyes White Dragon. Well, that's a cool voice, but what? But why couldn't I do something where I'm going like, where I'm saying something like, you know, the new Ford Mustang is the coolest car I ever drove. Right? Why not do that where somebody who's not part of our world can go, this guy's cool. I like this guy's voice. That's going to be cool. And then they're like, and he can really sell that car. Right? So you got your little demo reel and you say, well, now what do I do with it? Well, that's when you go and you contact those casting people in the agencies. Maybe even a local radio station. Sometimes local radio stations and things like that have staff that fill in and do commercials and things like that. Even interning. If you're really interested in like getting into the voice business, I worked at a recording studio as the coffee guy. I got a job offer. I was teaching tennis. That's what I was doing. I was a musician and I was teaching tennis. And one of the members of the tennis club said, hey Eric, you know, I'm a part owner of a recording studio and we need a new assistant there. Do you want to come and work in the recording studio? And I'm thinking, I'm a musician, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be around, you know, people making records. This is going to be terrific. So I go in, I interview, they hire me. It's a very small little production company in New York. And I'm waiting after the first week for when the bands start to come in. When we can start recording the bands? And my boss said to me, we don't do that. We just record voiceovers. I was like, well, what kind of business is that, voiceovers? It's just, you know, radio, TV commercials, people that use their voices. You make a living doing that? I mean, you know, I've watched commercials my whole life, but like, that's just a job, that's it? They're like, that's what we do. So I call it the Karate Kid way of learning how to do voiceovers. I was wax on, wax off. I was cleaning the counter, making the coffee, absorbing what was going on. I went from coffee guy, which was like basically production assistant, you know, I could make copies and things like that, to assistant casting director, to then producer, and then I finally ran the studio. Okay, and I did that. It was a 10-year internship that turned into then being in charge. And I think that in today's society, that is something that has gone away, that is better training than any school that you could go to. If you want to be a great carpenter, you find a great carpenter and you go and ask him if you can be their assistant.
Apprenticeships.
I know more about recording. I can engineer, I can edit. I've got my own studio at home now. I learned more from being in the recording studio, absorbing what was going on, because those things that I experienced cannot be taught in the classroom. And I didn't know I was going to be a voiceover actor, you know, or as part of what I do. I thought I was going to work in this recording studio. I went on big major tours as a rock guy. I was having fun doing that. Voiceovers became, wait a second, I can do this and travel and play music. It's a great way. I can leave town and come back to town. And it's much more flexible than a staff job. But I would never have said, if you asked me in high school, Eric, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would have told you I'm going to be a singer-songwriter. I knew that. But I would never have told you I was going to be a voice actor. It was not a dream of mine. I liked cartoons. I liked that stuff. But by being immersed in it, it was a great experience. So if you find that there's a production studio around here and they say, well, we're not hiring. Do you guys do voiceover work? Oh yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. Do you need someone to help clean up? Like, you know, put the garbage away at the end of the day, or just keep the studio neat? Now, I'm not saying give up a day job if that's what you've got, but if it's a passion you have and you can find a place that lets you do that, you will find that you will learn so much, and you will also be given opportunities that you never thought you would. I became a voice actor because as a casting director, when I would hold a big casting session, let's say it was a guy and a girl, and I got 20 girls coming in, I got 20 guys coming in. At the end of the session, 2 guys didn't show up. I've got 2 girls waiting in the waiting room to read with somebody, and there's nobody there. I'll just jump in the booth and read with them so they have somebody to play off of, so that the girl that came in or the 2 girls that came in at least get an opportunity to audition with someone. Because if I just let them read by themselves, answering questions that don't exist, they're